Hi everyone, this is the challenge text, Mohandas Gandhi Soul Force. I'm going to quickly go over the vocabulary words with you and then I'm going to read this out loud. The challenge texts are not available on the e-reader. Because it is a challenge text, they are higher lexiles, which means the words are more challenging. So you might even hear me make some mistakes when I read, and I'm going to correct them as I read them. So just bear with me through that. As far as the scrolling, if you need to pause and reread, that is totally fine as you listen to the reading. And then you're going to have some questions at the end of this to answer. So some of you may have been assigned Satyagraha a couple weeks ago, the story about the football team. So this challenge text kind of takes you into Mahatma Gandhi's life and how he became the influence that he was in the world. So I'm going to scroll down to the first vocab word. This word right here is excel, and excel means to perform better than others. Okay, so Gandhi thought he had a family friend that thought he might excel as a lawyer, so perform better than others. Okay, down here, our next word is impression. So in this context, they're talking about Gandhi giving the impression that he was wealthier or had more money than he actually did. So he gave the idea or effect that he had more money than he actually did. Down here, the vocabulary word is devised. So it says Gandhi devised another kind of power. He called it Satyagraha. That means he created another kind of power or thought of another kind of power. So that is devised. Down here, the word is unquenchable. So the sentence says, determined spirits fired by an unquenchable faith in their mission. So unquenchable means unable to be put out or unstoppable. So in this word, I think of quenching your thirst means if you're really thirsty, you might have a glass of water. Sometimes you might be so thirsty that your thirst would be unquenchable. Nothing would help. So you would not be able to stop that thirst. Okay, hope that makes sense. The next word is self-sufficiency, and it looks like there's a little typo here. There should be two F's there in between the U and the C. So self-sufficiency means the ability to provide for oneself or independence. Okay, so if you are self-sufficient, you are independent, or you can provide for yourself. Next is alliance. An alliance is an agreement to work together, a group of people joined for a purpose. So if you have an alliance with someone, you have an agreement with them. And that is it. Okay, so here are your comprehension questions. If you wanted to pause and take a look at them, they are pretty straightforward. Most of them are available in the text with the answers. Some of them are ones that you will have to kind of infer from the reading, okay? So, for example, number 6 is one that you're going to have to do your own interpretation of and answer it that way. So there will be no right or wrong answer for that one. All right, I'm going to scroll back to the top and go ahead and start reading. Okay, in 1947, India overcame nearly 200 years of British rule. Though many countries, such as the United States, won their revolutions with long, bloody wars, India won its independence using an entirely different kind of power. According to Mohandas K. Gandhi, the man who led the struggle for India's independence, it was the combined powers of courage, nonviolence, and truth that won freedom from Great Britain. If a war is fought with nonviolence, then what are the weapons? In India, with Gandhi's leadership, the weapons were ordinary things like spinning wheels and a pinch of salt. Gandhi would never have frightened anyone passing him in a dark alley. He was a slight man with a bald head. He wore round, wire-rimmed glasses. He covered his body with only a couple pieces of homespun cloth. He often carried a walking stick. Born in Porbandar, a small town on the west coast of India, on October 2nd, 1869, Gandhi was a very timid little boy. He was afraid of the dark and insisted on sleeping with the lights on. According to his religious tradition, Gandhi was married when he was 13 years old. Even though Gandhi did poorly in his studies, a family friend thought he might excel as a lawyer, so when Gandhi was 19 years old, he departed for London, where he enrolled in law school. In Great Britain, Gandhi tried hard to look and behave like a successful man. Not only did he acquire flawless English, he wore fancy clothes, rented rooms that were beyond his means but gave the impression of wealth, and even took dance lessons. I'm going to scroll down here so the whole page is at the top. After a while, so I'm right here. After a while, though, he realized that none of these affectations made him any happier, and so he began discarding them. He started cooking for himself, and rather than taking expensive taxis, he walked to his destinations. Gandhi felt a little better living more simply, and he managed to pass his law exams. Returning to India, he began to practice law. Due to a number of factors, he struggled as a lawyer and found little success. His career suffered, and so again his family stepped in to provide assistance. This time they found him a job practicing law in South Africa. Gandhi was shocked when he experienced the prejudice that the Indians were treated in South Africa. One time he was riding on the first-class section of a train. Another passenger demanded that he move to third class. Gandhi possessed a first-class ticket and refused to move, so the passenger fetched a steward who threw him off the train in the middle of a winter night. Gandhi spent that long, cold night reflecting on what had happened to him, especially wondering how Indian people who were subjected to this kind of racism could fight back. Gandhi lived in South Africa for over 20 years and became a leader in the Indian community there. Though some people might have planned wars or violent uprisings after experiencing injustice, Gandhi devised another kind of power. He called it satyagraha. I'm right here now. In practicing satyagraha, a person never gives in to violence when trying to resolve conflicts. Instead, he or she uses nonviolent resistance, translated as soul force. Satyagraha means holding fast to truth or firmness in a righteous cause. Gandhi wrote, "Determined spirits fired by an unquenchable faith in their mission can alter the course of history." He dedicated the rest of his life to demonstrating how satyagraha worked. When he returned to India, one of Gandhi's biggest goals was an Indian independence. Surely millions of Indians could overtake the handful of British ruling India. Why not stage a forced revolution and win back the country? According to Gandhi, not only did violence fan the flames of hatred, but war always led to more war. Gandhi believed in the power of nonviolent resistance to overcome corrupt systems. So instead of war, Gandhi thought up creative ways to resist unfair British laws. For example, Indians were forced to buy cloth made in English factories. Gandhi organized a mass movement in which the people throughout India used spinning wheels to make their own homespun cloth and sew their own clothes. I'm right here. The British could no longer make money selling their factory-made cloth to Indians, and even better, the Indians were learning self-sufficiency. There were also severe laws against Indians making their own salt. In hot India, salt is a very important part of the people's diet, but with the salt laws in place, Indians were forced to buy expensive salt from the British. Again, Gandhi suggested using the power of resistance. In 1930, he began a 240-mile walk to the sea. As he walked, spreading the word about resisting this unjust British law, thousands of people left their villages and joined him. When they reached the ocean, Gandhi bent down and pinched up a bit of salt from the beach. The British arrested him for breaking their salt laws, but they were beginning to to suspect that they were losing their grip on the Indian people. How could they stop people from making their own clothes and salt? Even better, these simple acts of resistance empowered the Indian people, giving them control over their own lives. Even so, Indian society was not free from its own conflicts. An ancient caste system in India divided people into categories of importance, with the priests at the top and a group called the Untouchables at the bottom. Not only were the Untouchables not allowed to enter temples or use wells, but the people in other castes literally would not touch them. Gandhi knew that even if India gained independence from Great Britain, it would not be a free country if a group of people were treated with inequality and cruelty. He gave the Untouchables the name Harijan, or People of God, and throughout his life he used techniques of nonviolent resistance to gain rights for the Harijan. One of the biggest obstacles in the struggle for Indian independence was the conflicts between the Hindu and Muslim people in that country. Each group was worried that the other would have more power in a newly independent India. On several occasions, violent fighting broke out between the Hindus and Muslims. To stop the violence, Gandhi would go on a fast, refusing to eat so long as there was violence. Many people on both sides of this, so now I'm right here, on both sides of this conflict, Hindu and Muslim, respected and loved him. They did not want Gandhi to die, and so they promised to keep the peace. By this time, Gandhi's followers were calling him Mahatma, which means great soul. Gandhi used fasting with the British as well. Many times they threw him in prison for his acts of resistance, and there he would quit eating. The British knew that if the Mahatma died in prison, chaos would break out in India. And so, time and time again, they released him from prison and gave in to his requests. In 1947, when India finally won its independence from Great Britain, most people celebrated, but Gandhi's heart was broken. The Muslim and Hindu people had not been able to forge a working alliance, and so India was divided into two countries, Pakistan and Muslim, while the rest of India was Hindu. On January 30th, 1948, Gandhi walked to his evening prayer meeting. Each night, hundreds, sometimes thousands of people joined him for prayer. As he was walking to the meeting place, a man rushed up to him and dropped to his knees in front of Gandhi, as if he were about to pray. Instead, this Hindu man, who didn't like Gandhi's attempts to bring peace, Hindus and Muslims, pulled out a gun and fired. Gandhi died right away, but no one could kill his spirit. His deep belief in the powers of courage, nonviolence, and truth has continued to inspire people around the world. A few years later, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. used those powers to lead the nonviolent movement for African American civil rights in the United States. Gandhi's Satyagraha also inspired Nelson Mandela, who led the anti-apartheid movement in South Africa. Gandhi once said, "You must be the change you wish to see in the world." The power of his soul force lives on in those who use nonviolent means for positive change. Dedicated to truth and armed with courage, they strive to make the world a better place for us all. So I'm going to scroll down here and end the recording. Here are your questions. If you want to pause here, you can, and the questions will also be typed in for your assignment. Good luck, everybody.